Do you want to know how a setback can be a setup for a comeback? Well, you don't want to miss this episode of the lifestyle.org podcast because I have the author of the book of that same name coming right up. That's right. I'm here with the author of A Setback Is Just a Setup for a Comeback, Dr. Willie Jolley. You are an amazing man. You are at the top of most people's list to come be a motivational speaker. I am just so excited to be with you today, Dr. Jolley.
Well, it's a privilege and a pleasure to be with you, and I'm honored to be a part of this program. And anybody knows me knows I start, whether it's a speech, whether it's my Sirius XM show, whether it's my daily programming, I start the same way. I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, I can't refuse it. I didn't seek it. No, I did not choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but our eternities are wrapped up in it. So I'm grateful for this minute, this moment, this opportunity to be on with you, Roy, and to share some ideas with your listeners, your viewers, and those who might get it in any other delivery form to help them to do more, be more, and achieve more. So thank you for having me.
It's going to be an amazing conversation. You're going to help so many more people just through this conversation as well. You've helped a lot of people, but you've helped other corporations as well. I understand from the years 2006 to 2009, you actually helped Ford. You've helped other corporations as well, but you helped Ford to avoid bankruptcy and even avoid taking bailout money from the government because of your viewpoints, your perspective, and your principles that you bring in, not only to personal lives, but into the corporate structure as well. So it really is our delight to have this conversation with you today.
Well, it's an honor. And yes, I was honored to have the opportunity to work with Ford. It's a great story. I wrote the book, A Setback Is a Setup for a Comeback. The book went on to have great success globally. And then I started giving speeches around the country on that title, A Setback Setup for a Comeback. And in 2006, Ford was on the brink of bankruptcy. And they brought in a new CEO, Alan Mulally, who had transformed and turned around Boeing aircraft. And he came into Ford and said, look, we've got to change the culture. We've got to change the attitude of the people, and we need a comeback. And as soon as he said the word comeback, one of the other C-suite executives said, hey, I heard a guy speak at a conference who talked about a setback setup for a comeback. He wrote a best-selling book. He's dynamite. I would think he could help us. So they called me, and I said I'd be happy to help Ford any way I can, because my mom was a Ford driver. She bought one Ford after another over the life of our ownership of cars. And so I worked with Ford in 2006. Then they brought me back in 2007. Then they brought me back in 2008. In 2009, Ford was the only one of the big three automakers to be able to reject a government bailout. And they were able to go from losing $1 million a month to making $1 billion a month. Now, I always ask people, did the economy go up between 2006 and 2009? No. What changed? Thinking. And so we were able to change the thinking of the employees, and that is what helped to transform and channel a new mindset into the Ford organization. Well, as a result of that, the Detroit Free Press wrote an article about Ford's amazing comeback. And I'm grateful forever and ever that they put one line in that article. Their secret weapon was a speaker named Willie Jolley. Well, that same day, Roy, General Motors called me. The next day, Walmart called, then Verizon, then Coca-Cola South Africa, then Johnson & Johnson Dubai. And so for the next 10 years, I've been until I replaced Zig Ziglar on the Get Motivated tour, I was crisscrossing around the globe doing events to help people turn their setbacks into comebacks. So it all started that someone had heard me speak, and I just am grateful every time I get an opportunity to try and help somebody turn their setbacks into comebacks.
Well, it's not a surprise that it so logarithmically exploded for you, because your content is bar none. It's incredible content to truly help individuals change the way that they're thinking. Help us understand, as people, are watching this program and saying, I got to get this book, which, by the way, everyone, Dr. Jolley's book, if you want to buy it, in the YouTube description down below, we have a link so that you can purchase his book. We also have a link to his website. You definitely want to connect to him because he will change your life and help you to think differently. But in looking at this book, this content that you have, there's something there that not only corporations, but individuals look at and say, I've got to expose my people to this content. So walk us through, why are you so passionate about changing setbacks into comebacks? What was it for you in your own life that started this spark in you to create this content that resonates with so many?
Well, great question. Great question. The answer is that the first 2 pages of the book, and it's a 200-page book, but the first 2 pages tells my story in a very thumbnail sketch of it. I was a nightclub singer. I was a jingle singer. I sang jingles during the day, Pizza Hut, making it great. But I made the majority of my income singing in nightclubs. And Willie had a great run as a nightclub singer, won the award for best jazz singer, best entertainer. People would line up at 7 o'clock for the 8 o'clock show, 9 o'clock for the 10 o'clock show. Things were going great. I bought a home. I had a sports car. Things were just going great. But one day I went in the nightclub. The owner said, I want to talk to you after the night show. I told the guys in the band, they want to talk. We've been selling out for 6 months. We got standing room only audiences. We're finally going to get our raise. I walked in his office that night. He said, you were great. I said, great. He said, the people loved you. I said, great. He said, you've helped us make a lot of money. I said, great. He said, that's why it's hard for me to tell you what I got to tell you. We've decided to make a change. We love your band. It's great. But there's something cheaper going around the country that's filling up nightclubs that's a lot cheaper than live entertainment. We bought a karaoke machine. And I said, but what about my bills? And I learned that night, nobody cares about your bills, but you and the people you owe. Okay. And so I was devastated. I didn't know what to do. I was so despondent. But someone came along and gave me a motivational tape, a cassette tape. And on that tape was a guy who said in that message that I will always be grateful for. He said, in 5 years, you'll be the same person you are today, except for 2 things. The people you meet who inspire you and the books you read that empower you. So I started going to seminars, listening to positive thinking people. I started reading positive books and my thinking changed. And I took a job with the Washington, D.C. public school system while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. It was during that job, that time on that school system, as part of my job, I had to start giving speeches to kids about staying away from drugs. And once I started speaking, I found what I was supposed to do, what I was born to do. And from the little kids, then the teachers would say, could you come to my teachers group? Someone in the teachers group would say, can you come to my church? Someone in the church would say, can you come to my company? And then Les Brown and Gladys Knight and Billy Preston were starting a tour and they needed an opening act. And they heard me speak and sing and invited me to be on tour with them. That allowed me to get exposed to corporations and to bigger companies, as well as to media. And I got a little radio show. It got syndicated. And now you can hear me on daily radio across America on Radio 1 stations with my Wake Up and Win with Dr. Willie Jolley daily motivational message. You can also hear me on Sirius XM, where I now have the #1 self-help show in the country, on the Willie Jolley Wealthy Ways show. My podcast is very popular, Willie Jolley Wealthy Ways podcast. And then that led to a book publisher calling and saying, have you ever thought about writing a book? I said, no, I never thought about it. He said, let me make you an offer. I said, I just thought about it. Well, I wrote a book called It Only Takes a Minute to Change Your Life, became a national bestseller. Then A Setback Is a Setup for a Comeback, became a global bestseller, then turned setbacks into greenbacks, another global bestseller, then turned An Attitude of Excellence, another bestseller. And then my new book with my wife, a marriage book, Make Love, Make Money, Make It Last, another bestseller. And then in 1999, I was called by Toastmasters International And they called my office and said, we've been looking for you. We're trying to find you. I said, what can I do for you? They said, you've just been named one of the outstanding 5 speakers in the world. And that joins Colin Powell, Norman Schwarzkopf, Nelson Mandela, Margaret Thatcher. I was shocked. I said, you sure you got the right person? They said, the one from Washington. I said, yeah. Who wrote the book, A Setback, A Setup for a Comeback? Yeah, you're the person. So I was honored with that. And then in that was 1999. In 2005, I was inducted into the Speaker Hall of Fame. And this year I was given the Joseph R. Biden Lifetime Achievement Award. That all happened, Roy, because I got fired, had a setback. So this book is built on that premise that a setback is a setup for your greater comeback, but you have a part to play in whether this is a setback forever or a setback temporary.
I love that. I know a lot of viewers and listeners right now are feeling really inspired, really excited, just because they see from your story what is possible if they don't let that setback be really the time that they set down. Help us understand your recipe for success, because a lot of people get fired and they just search for the next job, whatever. What was your recipe for success that you feel led you into the success that you're experiencing now?
Well, what I talk about in the book is not just my recipe, but the recipe that I've found that is consistent with people who turn their setbacks into comebacks. I've got stories about lots of people. Mine, as I said, is only the first 2 pages. We got a story about Lee Iacocca, John Travolta. They all had setbacks. Les Brown, Wally Famous Amos, Vanessa Williams, Tina Turner, all had setbacks and turned them into incredible comebacks. Or some of the people were not famous. And I think that's what applies to your people who might be listening or watching. They say, well, those are famous people. What about us, everyday workaday world people? Like me, I was an everyday workaday world person. Well, how about the lady I interviewed, who had a small business, the gentleman I interviewed who had a small business, 2 small children, had a setback, went bankrupt, lost his house, lost his car, ended up living on the street for a while, but he came back and built a company called Daymark, over $250 million company. Or the 9th grade math teacher I interviewed, Mrs. Doris DeBow, who was told when she went in for a checkup that she had cancer, breast cancer. They did some exhaustive searches and some tests, said you got about 6 months to live. She said, I can't die. I got too many children to teach. I can't die. I've got too much to do. They said, we're sorry, but you got 6 months, and they sent her home to die. Well, I'm excited to say that lady lived for 33 more years. And when I interviewed her, she said, tell the people in your book that I did have cancer. I had cancer 4 times over the lifetime of those 33 years. And I beat cancer 4 times. She said, here's what I want you to know. I had cancer, but cancer never had me. She said, one more thing I want you to tell people in your book, as you write this book. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, tell them that doctors give you the diagnosis, but God gives you the prognosis. Or how about the lady going up the corporate ladder, got up to the top of the ladder, and they fired her and told her she was too old. They didn't need her anymore, but she came back and bought the company. You're going to have setbacks in this process called life, but the stories in the book give you example after example and a formula on how to turn your setbacks into great comebacks. The formula is simple. It's called the V-DAD. V is in Victor, DAD, D-A-D formula. The V is for vision. You got to keep a vision of the future, because a vision in the future will help give you hope, and hope in the future gives you power in the present. So vision. Then the D is for decision. You got to make some tough decisions. You can either stay in a setback position or you can turn it into a comeback. I like to say it like this, Roy. When you were in elementary school, they told you there were 2 punctuation marks you needed to know to be able to read and write correctly: a period and a comma. Now, a period meant end of the story, no more to be said. See, spot, run, period. But then the comma meant pause, transition, more to come. Keep reading, keep going. There's more to the story. So you got to make a decision. Is this a setback, period, end of my story, or setback, comma, pause, transition? So VD, the A is for action. A vision without an action is an illusion. An action without a vision is mere confusion, but a vision and action put together can give your life a transfusion. So you must take action daily on your goals and dreams. And that is why you must have goals that are clear, that you know where you're going. So that goes back to vision. So vision, decision, action. And the last part of the equation or the formula is desire, that you got to want to make it happen, and you got to want it bad, not a little bit. You got to really want it bad. You have to have great desire that I'm going to keep going in spite of the challenges, in spite of the situation. I have write a piece in the book that there are three types of people that go up a mountain in life. They're the quitters, the campers, and the climbers. Now, the quitters, they start up the mountain, but then they realize it's tough. So they quit and they stay in the valley all their lives. They don't ever pursue a real destiny. But then there are the campers. The campers go up the mountain, get halfway to what they call base camp. They get there, they get refreshed, they get renewed, but then they get comfortable. They get a car, they get a car note, they get an apartment, they get a little apartment rent, and then they get settled in their comfort spot. But they don't move anymore. They stay there because it's comfortable. So 40 years later, they're still at the same place. But then you get the climbers. Now, here's what the climbers do. They dart up the mountain. They get to base camp. They get refreshed. They get renewed. They get some energy, but they keep climbing. And they have to go through snowstorms and avalanches and all sorts of things. But they're the ones who get to the summit and put the flag in the ground and say, here I am. I have achieved the destiny that I was supposed to. I'm supposed to do something great. And here's the thing. Everybody has a greatness opportunity. Everyone has a seed of greatness inside of them. They just have to make the decision that I am going to keep working, keep striving, keep pursuing this goal. So you got to have a vision. You got to make decisions. You got to take action. And you have to have great desire, and you can turn your setbacks into comebacks.
I love that. And I love your metaphor of the three groups going up the mountain. It makes me think of an angle that everyone is thinking here. Every one of those three groups are seeking comfort, and every one of those three groups are uncomfortable. It's just for different reasons. The one that doesn't continue up the mountain, they don't continue because they're uncomfortable. But I think in their search for comfort, they're also uncomfortable internally, that they never tackled this big goal that they had. The guys in the middle at the base camp, they stopped because they were uncomfortable, and it's more comfortable to stay. But internally, they always have this disquiet, this discomfort that they were not able to make it the rest of the way. The people that made it to the top, of course, they're uncomfortable. They're experiencing frostbite. They're experiencing tired muscles and less oxygen. But I think they will only be comfortable once they can breathe that sigh of relief that they've accomplished their goal. So everyone on that mountain is going to be uncomfortable. And everyone on that mountain is going to be comfortable in some way. But the reality is, the only way that success-minded people will ever be comfortable is if they acknowledge it's going to be uncomfortable getting there. It's going to be
Absolutely. It's a struggle. One of the pieces I write about in the book is a story about a little boy going through a forest. He comes upon an emperor moth struggling to make the transformation from a moth to a butterfly. He looks at it as struggle to get to the small opening in the cocoon. An hour goes by. It struggles. 2 hours. It struggles. 3 hours. Finally, the little boy takes out a penknife, cuts a slit in the cocoon to make it easy so it wouldn't have to struggle. Out falls this bug that is neither a moth nor a butterfly, has a big bloated body, small, shriveled, undeveloped wings. He looks at it as it lies there on the ground. Fly, you're supposed to fly, but it cannot fly because his wings are undeveloped. He goes to get his grandfather. Grandfather, come, why won't it fly? grandfather said, "What did you do, son?" He said, "I cut a slit to make it easy so it wouldn't have to struggle." He said, that's where the mistake was made. It is in that process of forcing its big body through the small opening that it forces the fluid out the body into the wings. Without forcing that fluid out the body into the wings will never develop. Without developed wings, that butterfly cannot fly, and a butterfly that cannot fly will never survive in the wilderness. The moral of the story is that life and flight are in the struggle. We must struggle. I ask people, how many have got children? And most people put their hand up and they say, well, do you remember when your child was an infant? Yeah, I remember. Okay, when they were infant, they crawled around. Do you remember the first time they ever stood on their own 2 feet? Yes. What was the exact next thing they did? They fell down. Yes, they fell down. But not one of you said, "Stay there, baby." You said, "Get up, come to mommy, come to daddy, try it again." Now the baby got up and tried to walk again and fell down. Now, sometimes they fell on their backsides, but sometimes they fell on their face. But you encouraged them to do it again, try it again, fall on your face again, because you knew if they never fell and got up, they never learned how to walk. They never fell and got up, they never learned how to run. They never fell and got up, they never learned how to maximize their potential. But some of us in life have been knocked down in life, have fallen down in life. It's not fair. But those who continue to get up are the ones who turn their setbacks into comebacks. It's uncomfortable, as you said, for everybody, but you have to make the decision that you're willing to go through the struggle to be able to become the best version of you. And I believe everybody, listen, folks, I believe everybody who's hearing the sound of my voice has the potential to do incredible things with your life. The key is, do you believe it?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people begin to stop believing it because we believe a lie that doesn't make sense in any other area. You mentioned a child learning how to walk. When our kids began walking and they fell down, we didn't say, "Well, I guess walking's not for you. Don't try it anymore." And yet in our adult life, we're so afraid of falling because people are watching. Of course, people are laughing who don't have our best interest in mind. And so we think, well, I guess I'm just not made for walking. And the reality is the only way we learned how to walk was by learning how to fall better. And I love what your buddy David Dennis talks about as well, when he talks about, about falling forward. It's not failing backwards, it's failing forward. And I think it's important for people to understand you've had failures. I've had failures. 10 years ago, I had a heart attack and I died. I was dead for 11.5 minutes.
For 11 minutes, you were dead?
11.5 minutes. Yeah. Fortunately, there were people giving me oxygen and they got a defibrillator on me. But I came back from that thinking, okay, now there's a lot of things in my life that I need to, take a look at, take stock in. Have I been a good dad? I thought I had, but no, I could be a better dad. Had I been a financial success? I thought I had, but I could do better. And I've proven I can do better. Had I been a good husband? Had I been, good at what I was doing in my life calling? And I realized in that moment that although I thought I had been successful in that area, there is so much more you can do. So that moment, I thought, okay, now it's my time to fly. So the perfect story would be from then on, I changed and everything went well. The reality is I had just started a new job 2 months earlier, and the people who were supposed to work for me that I inherited, they hated me when they met me. They hated me before they met me. They hated me after they met me, and even dying and having a heart attack didn't make them love me anymore. And it was a miserable situation that ultimately it led me into probably a year and a half of the darkest place I've been in my life, even though I thought, man, this is a great bright moment. Every day that I have is a gift. Every day is a blessing on this side of the dirt. I figured, hey, everyone is going to come along with me, seeing that, man, I'm about improving how I love people around me, how I really serve my calling and my purpose. And it just wasn't true. I did not feel the support of other people. And I think in many ways, if you're a spiritual believer, you also believe that you not only have, the spiritual realm that's rooting for you, you also have a spiritual realm that is trying to discourage you and take your courage away. And in that moment of darkness, I just felt like, everyone's looking at me and saying, this guy's a failure. But that is what propelled me and grew my wings to be able to do what I do now. I never would have dreamt 10 years ago that I'd get to, as a job, be able to talk to incredible people like you, Dr. Jolley, to work with celebrities, to work with professional athletes, to help people live the best life that they possibly can. But had I not gone through that dark time, through the fall that hit, and it hurt really hard, I would not have the empathy necessary to work with the people I'm working with. I would not have the experience of the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I would not in any way have the credibility as I'm trying to help people understand you can come out of this not only stronger, but so much more significant to the world around you by connecting with your life purpose. So I am very passionate, as you can tell, in what
I can tell.
In helping people understand these things that they see as setbacks are not your new trajectory. A setback is simply a great recalibration moment to be able to say, okay, so what did I learn here? And I say there's no losing if you're learning. And so as you're helping people learn, that's how it really launches them into a comeback that is so typical in successful people's stories.
Absolutely. Let me say a couple of things that you just so profoundly just said. One, you're going to have defining moments. Everybody's going to have a defining moment in your life. And it is in that moment where you live your faith or you live your fears. And so my defining moment came not when I lost my job. My defining moment came when I had an experience, and you said earlier that some of the people don't know how they're going to turn their setbacks. They're not sure how. So I'm going to give them two things. First, I'm going to give them the story, and then I'm going to give them a gift. First, the story. I was at the National Speakers Association convention opening session, and I was over in the corner, and it was about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago. And a gentleman came over, a photographer, and said, look, I want you to come. I want to take a picture with you. I said, okay, no big deal. I'm not wondering. I'm not a celebrity in my mind. I'm just a guy. And so he says, yeah, I have started my professional photography business, and I never realized how impactful speakers and books were on my business until I started really delving into these speakers and these audios and these videos and these books. I'm saying, okay, great. What they have to do with me? And so he said, and I never thought that the three greatest speakers who have impacted my business would be in the same room at the same time. And I'm now starting to say, well, what did I have to do with me? When we get to this place, there are two gentlemen standing there, Les Brown and Zig Ziglar. He said, you are the third. And I said, no. He said, get in the picture. No, I don't belong with those are the great ones. Les Brown, the great motivation speaker. Zig Ziglar, the dean of motivation. I don't belong in that picture. Those are the great ones. He said, yes, you do. Your books, your audios, your videos, your messages have changed my life, changed my thinking. Please get in the picture. I said, no. He said, get in the picture. No. Finally, he convinced me to at least get in the picture, take the picture. I took the picture. I smiled. And that picture's gone on to become known as the three great motivators. Now, here's the key. Zig Ziglar and Les at that point were the keynote speakers on the Get Motivated tour, went around to all the big arenas. They'd come to DC where I live, and I'd go to the arena. I'd sit in the front row and take notes. When Zig Ziglar died, I got the call to replace him. And it brought me back to that moment with that guy in that place, in that ballroom. He believed in me before I believed in myself. And so, folks, here's what I want you to know. I told you I believe in y'all. That's why I'm on this show today. And here's my message to you. Sometimes you got to go on somebody else's belief in you till yours kicks in. So today I want you to go forward like you believe it, even if you don't, because I believe in you. Now I'm going to give you a gift. I want everybody who wants this gift to just send me an email. I wrote a book with some other great speakers called Only the Best on Success, about 10 great Hall of Fame speakers put together a book just to encourage, inspire, uplift, empower people. And so I'm going to give you a digital copy of that book. My gift to you, all you got to do is send me an email, say, I heard you with Roy Ice. I heard you with Roy Ice. Can I have the gift book? My assistant will send it to you, my gift to you. The email is info@williejolly.com. info@WILLIEJOLLEY.com. info@williejolly.com. Just send an email, say, I heard you with Roy Ice. I like the gift book. It'll be my gift. And remember this, you go on my belief in you till yours kicks in.
I love that. And what a generous gift that you're giving. It really is life-changing. I think what you just addressed is something that so many people on their path to greatness have such a struggle with, especially those like yourself who are humble individuals who your whole focus is on other people, not on yourself.
Well, it's the grace of God. Let me tell you, just let me cut in there. It's the grace of God that took a guy who was a broke, busted nightclub singer and created this speaker and author and radio. It's the grace of God, and I give him the glory. He do the work through me. So I want to make sure everybody knows that I am a man of faith who believes that it is he who does the work through me, and I give him the glory.
Yeah, and that's why you've been so successful. I work with people. I've met a lot of people over the years who they have dreams, they have a vision of greatness, but that greatness really revolves around them being great, not in making other people great. And the reason why you are where you are is because you've stayed focused on the thing that has made you great, which is making sure you're helping other people understand there's hope, and there's a way to take what some have tagged as failures and help them understand how that doesn't keep them from having future success. And so I hope all of our listeners hear what Dr. Jolley is saying in the sense of at your height of influence, if you keep the perspective that this really is God's gift to you to allow you to fulfill the purpose that he filled within you even before you were born, and your reason for being where you are, when you are, who you're surrounded by. If you keep that perspective, you'll never feel famous. You'll just feel like, wow, it's so great to be able to have a voice that people will listen to, and this opportunity to share with them the things that God has allowed me to learn along the bumps and bruises of the road. This can really help people save a lot of time, save a lot of heartache, and really launch them into their best life and their best significance in their community a lot quicker than them going through a longer journey to meet that path. So to me, absolutely. This is the important
thing. Hey, look, I say it like this, Roy. There are two ways to any goal: mentors and mistakes.
Yeah.
Both will get you there if you don't give up. One just gets you there quicker, faster, with less headaches, heartaches, and knots upside your head. That is why we recommend mentors. That's why they should listen to you. Every time you post a show, every time you put up a new podcast or a new show, they should make it part of their mission to listen, because you're bringing in people who can inspire and mentor and empower them, and then helping them in multiple spots of their lives. I know one of the things I was so impressed when David Dennis, our dear friend, introduced us was that he talked about the fact that y'all are focused as well on family and on success. And one of the things that has been my purpose is to empower people personally and professionally, but also with their families. That's why my wife and I wrote the book, Make Love, Make Money, Make It Last, 10 Secrets to Shape a Great Marriage. We've been married going on 40 years, haven't had an argument in over 35 years. And we wrote the book. Now people around the world are saying this book has transformed their marriages, that's kept them from divorce. Some were divorced and got the book, and they read it. They got 2 copies of the book, and each one of them read it, and now they're back together and they're celebrating love, because usually problems in marriage stem from some little problem that deals with either sex, money, or communication. And it's some little problem that is not dealt with when it's little, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And before you know it, it's got a big chasm. So what we try and do is help them to heal that problem, fix that problem, and give them 10 secrets that we've learned from mentors when we were struggling in our marriage, from mentors who helped us to turn it around. And now we're able to help others through mentorship, through a book and audio programs. So I encourage everybody to go to winwithwillie.com, winwithwillie.com, look for the Jolley marriage icon, click it, and go in there, and you'll get a free chapter from the book that will help you. Whether you buy the book or not, we'll bless you with the biggest chapter, the one on communication. That's our gift to you, because we want to encourage, inspire people professionally, personally, with their families, and with their futures. And that's what we're trying to do.
I love that. And we're going to include that link in the description of this podcast episode as well, because we definitely want all of you to connect with that. Like you said, mentors change everything. And like what you also said, you know, my understanding of approaching the life coaching model is, you know, we can focus on financial success and we can focus on relational success, which seems to be where a lot of life coaches really focus on, because these are the things that people are most highly motivated to work on in their life. But what I found through working with several very influential people, I interviewed a couple of years ago, Bedros. You probably saw him on the cover of Fortune magazine not long ago. When I was talking with him off camera about some of the things that he was doing. He does these incredible weekends where he really helps some of these very successful, financially successful men to understand the holistic sense of success and what life is. And so he does this boot camp. And one of the things that he said to me that really just shook me to my core was that he has clients, they spend $12,000 for a weekend with him to come break down and rebuild a better life and a better perspective of what success is. But he says he has these multimillionaires, one of which was driving from his work in San Diego up to his home after a week of work. He was coming back home up near Beverly Hills for the weekend. And on the way, he stopped off to see his mistress. And because of that, he had so much guilt, so much shame that his own personal value had been completely demolished and crumbled to nothing. And he says, I work with these people who have learned how to be a financial success, but they're miserable people because the rest of their life just isn't in sync, that the gears of their life aren't helping them feel this holistic, good life experience. And so you're passionate about this. I'm passionate about this. You can have one thing going very successful in your life and still be very miserable because your life is meant to do something significant in the world around you.
Oh man, you're absolutely right. And I'm so impressed with the way you think and the thoughts that you are sharing. Absolutely. One of the things we want to encourage people to do is understand that it is who you are that helps you become what you can be, who you are as a person, your character, your integrity, who you are at the core, and that you're willing to do something that helps others, that inspires others, that uplifts others, that gives a service, that empowers people some way or the other. And that's where the long-term success will come. How are you viewed with your family, your friends? I'm writing a book called Rich is Good, Wealthy is Better. It should be out soon. And in there, I talk about what you just said about wealth. There are 5 types of wealth. There's, of course, financial wealth, which people want. But then there is health wealth, which you have talked about today, having a heart attack. You'll want to make sure health is a priority, because if health is not in your top 2 goals, number 3 really doesn't make a difference. Then you got reputational wealth, what people say about you when you're not around that is impacting your brand. Then you got intellectual capital wealth, what you know and who is willing to pay you for it. And last but not least, is very powerful, is relationship wealth, the relationships you have with your family, your friends, your coworkers, and those all impact your whole being. So this book is going to be profoundly impactful on helping people to understand that there are situations, circumstances that will help you create generational wealth. I'm speaking a lot for men's programs, and I just did a men's day at a church, and I talked about the lessons we learned from the great preacher Jonathan Edwards, who back in the 1700s was a great preacher. He had 11 children, and every day he'd come home from work. He would talk to his 11 children for about an hour, and then he would lay hands on each one of them and pray good things into them. He would pray that they would be a people of character and integrity. There was something great inside of them. Well, out of that came one U.S. VP, 3 U.S. governors, a number of U.S. senators, a number of preachers, a number of politicians, a number of professors, a number of doctors, a number of lawyers. We counterpose that to a guy named Justin Max, who didn't believe in God, didn't take time with his family, and he too had 11 children. Out of his 11 children, we had a number of them who were in jail, a number of them who were rapists, a number of them who were pedophiles, a number of them who were drug users, who died of alcoholism, because there was never that seed planted in them about their potential and possibilities. That is why it's so important that you take time with your relationships. You pour into your children, you value them, and they value the time you put with them. Love is spelled Time, time with your children, time with your wife or a husband, time with people who are important to you, and then pouring into them. It really does make a difference. And you talk about generational wealth, that's where 4 or 5 generations down the road, your impact today is making a difference.
I think that's so huge. And I hope all the parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles, and people of influence, teachers, are listening to what you just said, because the power of expectation from the people around you, positive expectation, is life-changing. When you affirm a young person and say, I see the gift in you, I see how you are able to do things in a natural way that most people around you or your age are not doing. Just that seed that you speak of this expectation of this is where you're gifted, it is life-changing to especially young people who are still formulating in their brain, who am I? What can I do? What am I capable of? Expectations rule everything.
Right. And the scripture says we must stir up the gift within. And what I want to do is stir up the gift. Everybody has a gift. Everybody who's watching, who's listening, everyone who is experiencing this message, this interview, you've got a gift. There's genius in you. It's not if you are smart, it's how are you smart. Everybody got some genius. The key is that gift must be stirred up. And that is what I'm doing. Roy does. And the folks who produce this show, we're trying to stir up that gift that's within you and encourage you and inspire you and tell you there's greatness within you. And now let's go make it happen. One of the things I have in my office, they're all over, Roy, eagles. I got one there, one there, one there, one there. One over there, one over there. I got eagles in my office to remind me that I am supposed to fly like an eagle. I'm supposed to mount up on wings like an eagle. I must run and not grow weary, and I must walk and not faint. And also understand that I've got to decide every single day, with all the stuff that's happening in life, there are all sorts of challenges coming my way every day. But I got to decide, am I going to be an eagle or an ostrich? See, an ostrich, when the challenges of life come, sticks its head in the ground and says, wake me when it's over. I don't want to deal with the problems. But the eagle, it does something odd. In the midst of the storm, in the midst of the problem, it takes flight and flies right into the face of the storm. It fights through the storm. It struggles through the storm. It gets through the storm and eventually gets above the storm. And then it can see the whole panoramic view of the environment. And it says, oh, I see right there over here, there's a problem. I see it now. I see that problem. I can see it clear, but I can also see up the road. And I see that there's good up the road. There's good up the road. Keep going, keep fighting. Don't stop, because there's good for you up the road. And so I'm encouraging everybody that you were born to be like an eagle, not like an ostrich.
No.
Keep flying high.
Yeah, I love that. Just that perspective that you have there, and you've got the eagles to remind you in your office, that perspective of you were made, the motion that you're called to make is to fly high. I think most people have imaginary buzzards in their office where that their motivational factor is, I gotta have some sense of motion, otherwise the buzzards are going to think I'm dead and they're going to start picking on me. But you're right. In the Judeo-Christian scriptures, it does say at least 5 times that before you were born, that God knew you and he prepared good works for you to do in advance of your birth. And if most people could grasp that, to understand there are great, mighty things that you are not coming up with. The reason why you're passionate about specific things is because these are God-given passions to help a world that just needs to understand what love feels like, to know that in a world of very self-centered people, that there's at least a few around that literally care for them and really care about their future. And you exemplify that, Dr. Jolley, in what you do and as a man of faith of how you're living that out right now.
Absolutely.
What do you currently see is probably one of the biggest challenges in the people that you're working with and trying to help them understand, how to now navigate this belief system that they are made for something great. They are made to be significant in whatever community that they're in. What are some of the great challenges that you're finding that you're working with people to help them overcome those challenges or those obstacles in their own minds?
Doubt and fear. Doubt and fear. Look, fear can overwhelm us. We will focus on our fears and overcome those fears, or our fears will overcome us. Yeah. So we have to help people overcome their fears. And now there is a emotion called fear, and it's there for a reason. Psychologists have proven that there are 2 fears we are all born with. They are their defense mechanism, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises, so that they will defend us from danger. But there are fears that we've learned over time: the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of heights, the fear of the boogeyman. And so we've got to overcome our fears. Our fears will overcome us. They'll keep us shackled. So that is why I've been creating these programs and things that will encourage people. One of the things we've done is we've created a show called The Comeback Show. And in this show, it's a Broadway style show that I'm doing around the country. We're doing it in Washington right now at a weekly program every week. And people can learn more about it on my website. But here's what I want to say. In the show, I talk about the fact that you have to overcome your fears. And the way to overcome your fears is to take action. You must move in the direction of your greatest fear. Whatever it is, move in the direction and you will see it will disappear. Poof. Yeah. It'll go away. Poof. But we let these fears overwhelm us. But fear is, by its nature, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. But what is faith? Faith is finding answers in the heart. And so you got to find your answers in the heart, that there's something inside of you if you're willing to look deep enough and get past the fear. So we got to help people overcome their fears and their doubts. In my book, It Only Takes a Minute, Change Your Life, there's a great story about these 2 brothers who went from house to house, city to city, state to state, robbing people of their dreams. They were fear and doubt. And they went from house to house, and when they'd knock on somebody's door, people open the door, they'd rush in and overwhelm the person and steal their hopes and dreams and leaving them bankrupt, well, of any hopes and dreams, and just on the floor in pain and misery. Well, they went from house to house, city to city, state to state. One day they came upon this big, beautiful mansion, and they said, "Oh, that house is one we will really be able to do some damage." They went and knocked on the door, but they did not know that this was the home of their mortal enemies, faith and courage. They knocked on the door. They knocked on the door and said, "Hurry up, open this door." Finally, the door swung open. And when faith and courage came to the door, there was no one there. They looked up the street. They looked down the street. That there was no one there, because in the face of faith and courage, fear and doubt must always disappear. Take action on whatever it is that's stopping you. Whatever that fear is that's keeping you bound. I like to say fear will keep you bound. It will keep you down. It will keep you shackled. But when you break out of that, you will be able to fly high and do great things. So I'm encouraging you to identify your fear and move in the direction of it. You'll be amazed at what happens.
And that will only serve to grow your faith. I know a lot of people today define the word faith as they understand it, which is believing in something that's not provable, or believing in a fantasy, if you ask some people. But the original understanding of the word faith, it should probably be translated more into the word trust.
Yes.
It's based on evidence of the past, of a consistent experience. That's why it's called faith, is because you have faith that this is going to happen. It's this sense of it's just around the corner. It's not
Right.
the sense of I believe in something and I don't really have any expectation of that happening. Trust is the expectation of whatever you believe in actually coming to be and happening. So I love
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
We live today, and it seems like since 2020 to today, we're recording this in June of 2023. It seems like the world has truly shifted the focus into more of a blame game and victimization of personal success rather than owning their personal success. And I say publicly, and I say it adamantly, I think a couple of things that are the lowest forms of human expression, and I loathe them to my core, is racism. Anything that is polarizing for an us versus them enemy creation, whether that's political, religious, whatever the mode is. And I've seen, in the polarization over the past couple of years of society, I've seen an explosion of perception of hate and an explosion of the expression of hate. And I'm sure you've had to deal with this as well in your work, in trying to help people understand, yes, the society around us is not always going to be the most mature, but we cannot allow the society to dictate to us what is normal in our lives, what is normalized in our lives. What are some of the things that you've noticed lately in trying to help keep people motivated in what appears to be an increasingly negative world? What are some of the conversations you've been able to have with people to help them get past the polarization, get past the racism, get past, the vax versus anti-vax, or whatever is the topic du jour? What are some things that you're finding are helpful for people to escape from the negativity and to truly focus on their life calling, their life purpose?
I spoke to a group on Sunday, and I told them that it's pretty clear that Jesus taught that there were two prongs on which all the scriptures hang: love God, love people.
Yeah.
Love God, love people. If I love God, I'm going to honor him. And if I love people, I'm going to honor people. I don't have to agree with them.
Yeah.
I don't have to always be on the same side of the fence with them. But if I love them, maybe we can find some dialogue. Maybe we can find some commonality. And so when I encourage people to do that, I encourage them to look beyond our differences and find our common points, that we all have some things common, and to be patient with people, because people are struggling. We are struggling on a number of levels. You know, the Surgeon General said that there's a new crisis post-pandemic of loneliness, anxiety, depression, suicide, that people are struggling. They look good on the outside, but they're falling apart on the inside. I call it they're living lives of quiet desperation. So my goal, my job, my mission is to inspire people to just love God and love people. And if you do that, things will fall into place. I really truly believe that. And when you're having tough moments, be willing to pray. Because prayer changes things. We've heard that saying, prayer changes things. But we don't know how it changes things. Sometimes it changes the situation, correct. But sometimes it changes our attitude. We can pray about the mountain in front of us, and sometimes we'll pray that God will move the mountain. He won't move it. He said, I'm not moving it. But you can pray to help me, God, and he'll give you the strength to climb the mountain. So I don't always know how God's going to bless me, but I do know, and what you said earlier, I have learned to trust him. I have learned to trust him. And when I learned to trust him, everything changed in my life. So I'm encouraging everybody who's watching or listening just to trust God, love people, and trust him. He's good for his word. He's good. I can tell you he's good.
I love that. And you remind me of the common phrase that people say, you know, a lot of times we pray for God to calm the storm, but most often he calms us. And so regardless of what's happening in our nation, regardless of what's happening, how other people are treating other people, God can calm us, give us the perspective, and just continue helping us to truly love the people that we have the opportunity to love in our path. Now, in the closing minutes that we have, recently, I'm sure you're seeing kind of a consistent bit of advice you're having to give to the people that you're talking with. What seems to be the most consistent thing that people are asking you or wanting your advice or your input? What seems to be the most common thing right now?
How do they get unstuck? Okay. How do they get unstuck? I hear that a lot. I'm stuck. The pandemic got me stuck. I'm in this rut. I've gotten used to doing it this way. I'm uncomfortable doing it another way. I'm stuck. And what I'm telling them is, let me help you get unstuck. Again, inputs determine outputs. Let me give you some positive inputs that will start to tweak in your thinking. So that's why every day I put out these 1 minute motivational videos, just to constantly start to tweak your thinking. You know, it's like the drip, drip, drip. What wins in the fight against the immovable object and the unstoppable force? Which one is going to eventually win? And the fight between a rock and a stream, the stream eventually wins. It whittles away just little by little at the rock, because it's little by little. So I'm on a drip every day, a positive thought on people every day, Monday through Friday. And over time, that rock of depression or despair or not believing or I'm not good enough, it starts to be whittled away. So that's what I want people to do. Get unstuck by just go to winwithwillie.com. It's my gift to you. And just sign up for the newsletter. Get it free. It will help you. It will inspire you. It will empower you. It will encourage you. And let me tell you, in this time of such bad news all around, we need some good news. Last but not least, I got a site called jollygoodnews.org. That's my faith-based site, jollygoodnews.org. And on there, you can see me when I spoke at the Crystal Cathedral, or you can see some of the programs that we're trying to help people with. Books Beyond Bars, getting people in prison to not ever go back again. Getting young people to not go in the first place with my PBS special. We're trying to put good into the world. I got a sign on my desk, Roy, right here. It keeps me focused. Willie, you cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good you can do. Amen.
I love that. And I really hope that all of you watching or listening to this right now will go to all of the websites and all of the links for the books. I hope people will truly connect with your radio show, your podcast, everything, because you are doing so much good in the world to help people understand there's hope. Don't get discouraged when you have a setback. And it has just been an absolute pleasure to talk with you
One last
today.
thing. One last thing. Can I give you one last thing?
Please.
This is one last thing out of the book, A Setback is a Setup for Comeback. Page 186. I tell stories about Lee Iacocca, John Travolta, Les Brown, Wally Famous Amos. But at the end of the book, I got one more story of a comeback. And it's a simple story. He was a young man who died in his early 30s after a brief public career had brought him fame in his time and territory. The tragic element of his life story is that after a stunning success, he was falsely accused of a crime that resulted in his imprisonment, trial, and execution. The death penalty was carried out. The end of his life was utter disgrace, humiliation, and shame. I would weep as I think of the whole sad, sordid spectacle of this social injustice, except that his name was eventually vindicated. He came back, and his comeback was stunning and spectacular. His honor was restored and elevated. His name today is the most respected and renowned name in the world. We even count the years by him, the time before his death and the time after his death. His name is Jesus. He's my friend. He's my inspiration. And if you'll call him, he will answer. He's the king of comebacks.
Wow. That's powerful and transformational, just hearing that. So thank you for being a blessing with us today and blessing so many people around the world with what God made you to do.
Amen. Thank you for having me. And I want to thank all your listeners. I want to thank all your viewers for being part of this program today. And we encourage you to share this with everybody you know in your network. Share this audio, share this video, and then make a point to subscribe to Roy Ice and his program, and make sure every time he comes on, you listen in, because he's giving you good content to empower and inspire you. Blessings to all of you. And I'll close as I began. You have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. It's forced upon you. You can't refuse it. You didn't seek it. You didn't choose it, but it's up to you to use it. You must suffer if you lose it. Give account if you abuse it. It's just a tiny little minute, but your eternities are wrapped up in it. God bless you.
The one and only Dr. Willie Jolley. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching or listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to watch more television episodes or more podcasts just like this, or read a never-ending blog on ways to help you be successful and live your best life possible, we invite you to come to our website, lifestyle.org, so that we can help you live the best that you could possibly be. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.